So thank you all for being here, and thank you for the little blip that we endured. I'm sure we're all used to this fun technology, and but I appreciate your patience and rolling along and hopping back in. I'm glad we could make it work so that we could bring our guest from some various programs here to join us. My name is Bob Pleasance. I am the Associate Director for Student Outreach at the Office for Undergraduate Research here at UNC Chapel Hill. And Derek's going to advance the next slide, and I'll give you a little overview about what we're going to do today. So I'm going to give you a quick overview in just a second of our office, but mostly I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues from the UNC Study Abroad office, Emily Marlton and Derek Shepard. We're also going to be joined by some wonderful folks from DIS, a study abroad program represented by Tina Mangieri, Arcadia, and we're going to hear from Melissa Chambers and Jesse Gwynn. And then we're going to hear from some students who have done study abroad via UNC and done some research other places. So Mandy Pitts is going to join us. And then we're going to hopefully have ample time for all your questions, and we'll give you some answers. For those of you who might have to leave early for some reason, or if you have class, please know that we are recording this. And as soon as I finish speaking, I'll pop my email address into the chat, and you can just email me if you want a recording of the conversation. Next slide, please. Thanks, Derek. So real quick, I'm just going to give a plug to the Office for Undergraduate Research, where I work. We're a small office, and we live on the 3rd floor of Steel Building, where I am. This is my one day a week to come into the office right now. Escape from my family. Don't tell them that. But get to focus and be back on campus, which is really nice. But what we do is we exist to promote and to help students understand the benefits of undergraduate research. So we do that by hosting a website. We do that by speaking to students in classes and doing workshops and events. We also host on our website a database where students can find undergraduate research opportunities. But one of the main advantages and one of the main things I want to share with you today is that we also are more than willing to sit down with you for 30 minutes at a time or even more and just give you the chance to talk about what your interests are and to help you formulate a specific plan for how you want to get involved in research. Sometimes that means studying abroad. Sometimes it means doing research here. Many students do both. But please know that if you want to talk with one of us individually, you can meet with me or you can meet with my colleagues. So my email is on screen. Again, I'll also pop it in chat if you want to cut and paste it for reaching out later on. But please don't hesitate to make an individual appointment with me via Zoom now, of course. And I'm happy to help you figure out how to get involved in research and to find research opportunities on campus or perhaps abroad. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Derek and Emily.
Thanks, Bob. So my name is Emily Marlton. I work in the Study Abroad office at UNC. I'm the program director for Northern Europe. And I'm just going to give a brief overview of study abroad at UNC and then talk about ways to combine study abroad and research. So we have more than 370 study abroad programs available to you as UNC students. These programs span more than 70 countries. And if you're interested in studying language while you're abroad, we do offer programs in more than 36 languages. But of course, not all of our programs require a foreign language. We have many programs in English-speaking countries. We even have programs in non-English-speaking countries that don't require a language. So plenty of opportunities, whether or not you want to pursue language. We also have a wide diversity of program models. We have some programs that are as short as 3 weeks, and then we have programs that are as long as a full academic year and everything in between. Our program types vary as well. Oops, go back, thank you. Our program types vary as well. We have exchange programs where you would study for a semester or academic year at one of our partner universities abroad. We have faculty-led programs where a UNC professor takes a group of UNC students abroad and teaches a UNC course or courses. Most of these are offered during the summer, but we do have some faculty-led programs for a semester as well. And then we partner with many study abroad program providers who offer additional study abroad programs for UNC students. And we have programs that include credit-bearing internships, credit-bearing service learning opportunities, and of course, the reason we're all here today, we have programs that offer credit-bearing research. Okay, next slide. So of course, we're here to focus on those programs with research opportunities. So we have about 25 study abroad programs that include a research component. And we have plans to add more of these types of programs. And those 25 programs are quite diverse too. Those 25 programs are spread across 23 different countries, from Scotland to Ecuador to Singapore, and many more. And we have a variety of program models too that have this research component. So some of our exchange programs, some of our faculty-led programs, and some of our study abroad provider programs have a research component. And we can serve a diverse academic needs too. We've got study abroad programs with research for STEM majors, humanities, and social sciences too. So the three categories, just to help us all get this organized today, 3 categories of how you can combine study abroad with research would be, number 1, participating on an existing study abroad program where you would take a certain number of courses and you would complete credit-bearing research opportunity. And this model is available during the semester or the summer. A second model is where you complete full-time credit-bearing research. And those are typically over the summer. A third option is to build your own. So that could either be by participating on one of our existing study abroad programs that doesn't have a formal research component, but one that you could add your own. So for example, if you're participating on one of our semester exchange programs and you meet faculty at that university and they have a research program that you can get plugged into, you can add that on yourself. Or if you hear about another study abroad program with research that's not on our already approved list, you can still apply to participate on that program through our office. So those are 2 ways that you could build your own. Okay, and we will talk more about these different types of programs and give you examples of those later in the presentation. But first, I'm going to turn things over to Derek to talk about credit funding and some upcoming dates.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Emily. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for coming. My name is Derek Shepard. I'm the Study Abroad Advisor for Asia, Australia, New Zealand, and domestic programs. So if you are interested at all in going abroad to one of those places, you'll probably talk with me at some point. Just talk to you a little bit about credit. That's always a big question that we get from students. The courses that you take abroad across all of our programs, they're all credit bearing. And so you're able to kind of transfer back either major credit, minor credit, gen eds, or elective credit. Major and minor credit is approved by the different departments at UNC, and then our office approves general education credit. You automatically get your EE, experiential education, knocked out, whether you do a 3-week program or a full year program with us as well. We recommend that you come to one of our 101 information sessions, but then after that, kind of meet with an academic advisor or a study abroad advisor as well. They can kind of help you plan your study abroad experience, go over degree requirements, etc. Definitely use those resources. As I mentioned, you automatically get your EE there. Visit the academics abroad section on our website. Our website is studyabroad.unc.edu. You can certainly do a Google search and just kind of find that easy enough. The academics abroad section will kind of lay it out in detail, all of the information on credit too. How much will it cost? Always a big question. Emily went over some of the different program types that we have, exchanges, direct enroll, third-party providers. It really kind of depends on what program you do. If you go to our website, you can search for different programs on there, and then there'll be a budget sheet. And the budget sheet will have something that's called your kind of cashier billed expenses and then kind of out-of-pocket expenses. Cashier billed expenses are going to be kind of what you pay directly to through through Connect Carolina, and then the out-of-pocket expenses are plane tickets, food, housing, etc. It really kind of depends on the program, and then kind of also the duration. You know, kind of basically plan ahead, really. It's some students are saying, hey, when's the best time to study abroad? We have students that study abroad their freshman year, whether that be spring of their freshman year or summer, but it's never too early to plan, even if you want to kind of study abroad as a junior or senior. I studied abroad senior of fall of my senior year. So it's never kind of too early or too late. Your financial aid package goes with you when you go abroad for a semester program or for the academic year. So keep that in mind. If you're receiving loans from UNC, you know, those will go with you. If you go abroad during the summertime, that's typically loans or scholarships. Speaking of which, scholarships, our office this last year, I think, gave between like $750,000 to $1 million in scholarships to UNC students. So there is scholarship money available through us. I would definitely encourage you to check with your study abroad advisor about different regional scholarships. And then also kind of make sure you apply for scholarships when you go through our office as well. Of course, there are outside scholarships too that we can help you access and tell you about. So definitely tap us as a resource. Upcoming dates. So we just had our application cycle for those that are interested in going abroad in spring 2001. But if you are interested in going abroad this coming summer, or for the academic year, or for fall of 2021, our applications will open on November 15th, and they will close on February 10th. So keep those dates in mind as well. Of course, fall and academic year programs open on December 1st here. Usually our cycle runs from December 1st to February 10th, but these are some upcoming dates that you should be aware of there. All right, and then I'll turn it over to our partners, or back to Emily.
Yep, thanks, Eric. Okay, so thank you so much to a few of our study abroad partners who have joined us today, and they will do a much better job of speaking specifically about their study abroad programs with a research component. So we'll start with Tina Mangieri from DIS. She's the Associate Academic Dean at DIS, and she is based in Stockholm, Sweden. So turn things over to Tina.
Thank you so much, Emily, and thank you all for joining this research session. Good afternoon. This is really two things that I'm super excited about. One is UNC, because I have to mention I did my PhD in geography at UNC, so very excited to join you in Chapel Hill, but also research. So in addition to being Associate Academic Director at DIS, I'm also the Director of Research, and DIS is a nonprofit higher education institution that's headquartered in Denmark, and we have campuses in Copenhagen, Denmark, and Stockholm, Sweden, where I'm based, as Emily mentioned. So really happy to be joining you from here. And I really want an opportunity just to give you a little sense of the kind of research experiences that you can have with DIS, but more importantly, very happy to be part of this larger session, because I think particularly as an undergraduate, to have research opportunities, and especially to have research opportunities that are international is both a rarity and something that I'm so thrilled that UNC really supports. And I do hope that you're able to take advantage of it. I was lucky as an undergraduate and a master's student, and of course with my PhD, to be doing research. And so I'm just really happy to see so much interest in research kind of overall. So I wanted to kind of just jump in right away to some of the specific types of research you could do with DIS as one example. So on this slide, we have basically 4 ways of doing research with DIS, although we could probably even come up with some more. But just to go through them quickly, and then I'll spend a little bit of time talking about the breadth of research opportunities too. So regardless of your major, there hopefully is some kind of research experience that would match your interests and your background, and something that we can potentially offer if you were at all interested in studying in Scandinavia for study abroad. So we have something that we refer to as research assistantships, which are both 3 credit and 6 credit. So I'll just talk a little bit about them quickly. But the 3 credit research assistantships that DIS offers, these are actually research projects that our own faculty who teach with DIS have applied for research funding from DIS because they have a particular project that they're interested in. They could be a member of our faculty who is a full-time faculty member, or they might be a part-time faculty member, also with another position or other responsibilities that they have elsewhere in either Copenhagen or Stockholm, but they have a research project, they're interested in getting funding for it. So they go through an approval process with DIS. And once we fund their project, one of the stipulations is that they be willing to take research assistance as a part of their project. So you would actually join an existing research project that's led by one of our faculty members. And again, we have a kind of a wide variety. So although we do have research opportunities in STEM, for instance, we also have opportunities kind of across the curriculum that you could then receive 3 credits for as a part of this. And these are semester-long opportunities. Then I also wanted to mention the 6-credit research assistantships that we have. So in some ways, these are kind of somewhat similar, obviously longer, and they involve more time. So with the 3-credit research assistantships, we would expect that you would spend about 10 hours focused on research as one of the courses that you're taking over the semester. You would generally have 4 or 5 courses if you studied with DIS. The 6-credit research assistantships, these are actually STEM-focused opportunities where you get placed in a research lab in Stockholm in Sweden or in Copenhagen in Denmark. So these are mentored experiences also, but the faculty mentor in this case is running their own research lab at another institution. So it could be Stockholm University or Karolinska Institute here in Stockholm, or it could be University of Copenhagen, for instance, in Copenhagen, Denmark. And so these are more intensive. We expect 20 hours a week, of course, for the 6 credits. You become fully a part of the research group as a part of the research lab. You have journal club, for instance. You're presenting the work as you're doing it to other members of the research group. These are all generally very international, multinational research groups. The language of instruction is English throughout all of this, of course. And so these are kind of 2 of the semester type experiences that we offer. Of course, if you have your own research project, maybe something you've already been working on at UNC, you have your academic advisor and you're thinking you'd love to take maybe a comparative look at the topic that you've been focused on in Chapel Hill, but you want to bring it into a Scandinavian context, for instance, then you would apply for an independent research project. And this is also credit bearing for 3 credits. But in this case, you would write your proposal. You would work on your proposal ideally with your academic advisor at home. And then you would apply and we would review your proposal here at DIS, not at UNC, to determine whether or not it meets our criteria, whether we have an appropriate mentor, whether it makes sense. Are you really utilizing the location of Stockholm or Copenhagen to do your research? And if you're accepted for an independent research project, then we would of course let you know, work with you to make any changes you needed for your schedule. And this would then be one of the 4 or 5 courses that you take as a part of your semester, for instance. And then the 4th option is a co-requisite research lab. So that would be, you're a neuroscience student, you come to Stockholm to study affective neuroscience. There is, in addition to the 3-credit theoretical course that you would take, you would also be required to take a 3-credit lab course where you're in the lab, you're focused on developing your research proposal, you're actually conducting the research and kind of writing it up at the end of the semester. So it's considered a course. And you could almost think of it as kind of a 6-credit experience. For instance, you might be interested in forensic psychology, for instance, you would take the forensic psychology theoretical course, and then you would also take the 3-credit forensic psychology lab and be working in our own DIS on-site labs on eye tracking and other kind of data sensors to just kind of deepen your engagement with the subject of forensic psych. We also have some summer projects, but I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. And I also just want to mention too, of course, we're in Zoom. So if you do have any questions at all at any time in this hour, please stick them in the chat, of course, or when we have a chance for the Q&A, I'm happy to take them. I just wanted to quickly show a few examples of some of the 3-credit research projects. So again, these are DIS faculty. They've come to DIS for funding. They've gone through a rigorous process, application process, where we've determined that the research projects they themselves have proposed are certainly worthy of funding. That's quite an investment, of course, for DIS to do this. And then they're also taking on research assistants as a part of their projects. So you can see, I know these are just the titles, of course, but all of these are available on the DIS website to check out as well. But I really wanted to just emphasize that while we have kind of public health focused research, for instance, like the mammography screening project, HIV and reproductive technology access project. We also have other projects that are media focused. My colleague Bachman, for instance, has a research project that focuses on youth culture and media, particularly a type of, it started off in Norway, but it was a show called Scum, for instance, that's since gone global. And so her project takes a look at that. You might be interested in kind of really thinking through the study abroad experience itself. What does it mean to learn kind of and develop intercultural competency? And then you might be interested in joining my colleague Kirsten with her project on cultural learning and study abroad, for instance. Or if you're interested in human rights, issues around migration, for instance, maybe trafficking in persons for the purpose of organ removal would be a project that would interest you. Architecture, we've got projects there. Bodies Out of Bounds is a humanities project that really looks at embodiment and fashion. And so these, again, just to kind of give you a little glimpse, this is just a small subset of the types of research projects. But again, you would be, depending upon where the research project is at any given time, as you're joining it, perhaps it's gone past the literature review stage, it's actively involving, if it was a social science project, for instance, it might be at the interview stage or questionnaires, or you might be gathering data in various forms, or you might be more in the write-up stage. So it really depends on kind of where that project is in the cycle. So hopefully gives you a lot of different opportunities to check that out. I see that there is a question. So all the assistantship and research projects you just presented were solely for semester-long study abroad. Yes, so these projects that I've mentioned so far have been semester-long. We can go to the next slide, which also shows kind of something of an example of the semester-long, but some of these projects we also offer in summer. So we do have a 6-credit research assistantship available for the semester, again, where you're placed in kind of external labs in the city of Stockholm or in Copenhagen, working in the STEM fields. We also offer some of these projects in summer as a 6-week, 6-credit opportunity. And so I can also provide some additional information there. But this is just an example, again, of some of the semester length projects on cardiovascular and cerebrovascular diseases, neurodegenerative diseases. So my colleague there, Christina Freud, she offers not only this project during the semester, but she also teaches a lab course in the summer on microbrains. So if you're at all interested in neurodegenerative diseases, that might be an option. And then you see some of the other examples here. So they're really kind of across the STEM fields in both Copenhagen and Stockholm. This is, again, just kind of a sample of some of the research lab positions that you would be able to access. So we could go to the next slide. And then summer, so I wanted to just also mention specifically summer, and DIS works very closely with UNC on different summer offerings. So one of the examples that Emily and Derek mentioned earlier, the kind of faculty-led programs. So that would be a UNC faculty member who's taking students directly to DIS as an example. And we're in the process of developing even more of those types of partnerships right now, specifically around neuroscience, we hope. But DIS also offers to all potential students 2 different types of summer research opportunities. So one would be that same type of semester model, but rather than over the course of the full semester, you're doing a 6-credit research assistantship over just a 6-week period. And then we also have lab-based courses. And I have some of the titles here. The microbrains one I already mentioned. We offer a biomedical lab course, a climate lab course. So these are also 6-week, 6-credit research lab courses where, unlike the research assistantships, where you might be one of 2, 3, or maximum 4 students working on a research project, The lab courses might have 20 or 25 students. So you're part of a larger group, a larger cohort, but again, engaged directly in research as a part of that course. I will stop there in terms of DIS to make sure we have time for everything else. But again, I'll check the chat to see if there are questions, and I'll be with you for the Q&A also.
Thank you so much, Tina. Now we'll turn things over to Jesse Gwynn from Arcadia and his colleague, Melissa Chambers. Jesse is the Assistant Dean of STEM based at Arcadia University in Pennsylvania. And Melissa Chambers is the Associate Director of Institutional Relations based just down the road in Charlotte. And they will talk about the Arcadia Summer STEM Research program that, as the name implies, these are available over the summer. So I'll turn things over to Jesse. Thanks.
And Melissa, did you want to start out with framing a few things since you're so close nearby?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Again, I'm Melissa Chambers, and Dr. Gwynn and I work for Arcadia University. Arcadia is a small university in suburban Philadelphia, and we have proudly been sending our students abroad for about 70 years. We do have students on the ground this fall, and maybe we'll talk more about what we're doing to plan and navigate and shift during this time toward the end of the session. But delighted to be here today to speak with you about our STEM summer research programs in particular. We're so delighted to just start working with UNC to partner on this initiative. We would have hosted our first group last summer. So we are hoping for a reboot for summer 2021. And I'm so happy to have my colleague, Dr. Jesse Gwynn, here today, who manages all of our STEM initiatives at Arcadia. And he's pulled up our website here. We are going to be opening applications soon for the summer 2021 STEM research programs. And I'll let him give you a bit of a framework about the program itself, and then I'll talk a little bit about the application process.
Thanks, Melissa. And again, happy to be here again, Jesse Gwynn. I like to have this slide here in the front to this is our landing page on our website that shows that we like students to invite them in to ask a series of questions about what would you like to study, where, how, and the when. And although we do have semester research opportunities, right now I'm only going to be speaking about our lovely summer research programs because that's what's approved at UNC. So if we can go to the next slide and then the one after that to get right into the down and dirty of the structure there. Before I get started with that, it's just a little bit of my background is that I was a biology undergraduate student once upon a time. And then I wanted to study abroad during that time, but I was unable to do so because at that time, the opportunities weren't really there and I wouldn't have gotten credit for it and I would have, delayed my graduation. So those are things that I didn't want to hear. So I was unable to do that, but I was able to study away at the exotic land of Ohio to engage in a summer research activity. And that's where I fell in love with research and decided not to go to medical school and then to go on and to do research in graduate school, where I went on to get a PhD in neurophysiology. And so it's been great to have that experience to work in the field and then come into international education to help create opportunities and connect students to these great opportunities that currently exist. So with that, I was involved as an undergraduate student with an REU program for a research experience for undergraduates. So doing research at my home institution. And so we decided to use our infrastructure in initial partnership with Spelman College down in Atlanta to build out these international research experiences during the summer. And so we started with 2 programs and then we've expanded all the way to 8 in current times that we're really excited about. But before I get into the uniqueness of each one of those programs and the different disciplinary areas that we offer projects in, I'd like to talk a bit about the structure, right? And so we have 2 primary ways in which students can engage with summer research, and that is in the laboratory and also out in the field. Our programs for summer research are completely directed research, okay? So there will be no didactic teaching, so you won't be in a lecture hall and you won't be taking any class of any certain sort. You will be directly placed into the active research group. And those researchers that you'll be working with, they have chunked active research in that lab that they're actually working on for you to take part in and to contribute to meaningfully, okay? So you won't be flying across the oceans to wash test tubes or anything like that. You'll be involved in some really substantial research. So with both the laboratory and the field experiences, we tell students, because it's directed research, you won't be in the class, you need to prepare yourself mentally to be working in the lab 9 to 5 as though you were going into a job. And it really is that way, right? But it is a job, a work experience that you have chosen because you have a specific interest in that research project. So 9 to 5, Monday through Friday is pretty much how your week will be scheduled. Sometimes it will go a bit longer than that. And you'll be working on things in and out of your dorm room, but that all contributes to the minimum of 240 hours that we require you to put forth towards your research project. And that includes, again, being in the lab, out in the field, getting your hands dirty, but then also the dry side of things where you're working in the library or working in the laboratory on your paper and looking up resources and reviewing the literature. That all plays a role in that. And that's why each one of our programs awards 6 US credits for the 6 or 8 week experience, depending on the program. Right? And so again, how specifically your day will be structured really depends on the project and the research supervisor or the PI that you'll be working with during that program. All right, and so if we can go to the next slide, I have some screen captures here from our 8 programs that we have around the world. So I'll just go around and just give you the flavor of each one of those. So our farthest reaching program is in Brisbane in partnership with the University of Queensland, where we have students taking projects, can take projects from many different disciplines. So biology, neuroscience, there's some engineering there. It's most students can be accommodated on this program. What's great about it is that this is one program where the faculty coordinator that we have at each one of the locations, who will basically oversee the program while you are in country, along with our staff, does a little career tie-in. So she actually puts on a series of workshops so that, yeah, you're there, you're going to be doing science, you're there to do research, and research you will, but then also the workshops are focusing on you looking forward. So making those career connections about all of the skills that you're learning in this experience and those that you're learning at your home institution, how to weave those together and to really speak thoughtfully about it when it comes time for you to interview and, start the job search process. Even if it's a couple years, many more years after that, she's going to equip you with some really great tools as a part of that program. Our next program is in London at the Royal Veterinary College, which is the top veterinary school in the United Kingdom, I believe in Europe as well, but also number 3, I believe, in the world. And you may say, well, why would I do research at a vet school? I'm not interested in that. Well, the vet schools are much like, medical schools here in the United States, in that they're doing basic scientific research that leads to many discoveries and human applications in the future. And the Royal Veterinary College is no different. And so there, it's split between 2 campuses. If you're going to be in the lab working with cell culture and all those sorts of things, you'll be in London proper. But for the students that are a bit more adventurous and want to work on large animal research, that's a 20-minute train ride outside of the city. And we always have students, a cohort within the cohort of students that go on to participate in those projects. We've had students to work on horses as well as Asian elephants in captivity to do some really cool and dynamic research projects. Our program in Granada is in partnership with the University of Granada with their ISTA Institute, which is the Institute for Atmospheric and Environmental Studies there. We've had students from physics, math, computer science also participate in these projects, because you can either work in the center working with NASA databases, or you can be doing something that's a bit more field-based, where you're going out to olive orchards and going up into the Sierra Nevada mountains to collect data off of various instrumentation, or going up to the roof of the center to collect data from meteorological instrumentation. So we've had students to do projects on, again, sort of like public health and particulate matter in the atmosphere, to looking at modeling, again, from like NASA databases with, weather patterns, not just in the Spanish region, but around the world. Our next program is also located in London, and that's our program with King's College. And so this is one of our newer programs that is maybe a step and a half above the others as far as rigor. So all of our programs are rigorous, but this one is the most rigorous in that there's a higher GPA threshold, and all of the research projects that we have at this program are focused on meeting unmet patient needs. So we've had students to work on fabricating and creating different medical apparatuses and everything to be used on patients in the hospital setting. And we've also had students to work on the fabrication of things where they're fabricating 3D rib cages to be implanted in humans during surgery and everything. And so it's the chief disciplinary focus there is biomedical engineering, but you don't have to be a biomedical engineering student to participate on this program. You just have to have the curricular background, which we will make sure that you do have before being accepted onto the program. And also another thing that I mentioned is that with all the programs, there will be departmental seminars and things that you'll be involved with. But with the King's program, it is mandatory that you participate in those seminars, but then also be quizzed at the end of each one of them. And could we have the next slide, please? All right, so our next program is at the University of College Dublin. And so again, it's multidisciplinary, much like Brisbane, in that there's computer science there, there's neuroscience, there's chemistry and mathematics. We have the bulk of our computer science projects are there at the University of College Dublin. This is an 8-week program. And one thing I failed to mention is that our program in Granada, Spain is also 8 weeks. Those are the only two that are 8 weeks. The rest are 6 weeks in duration. With all of those programs, students have to give an oral presentation at the end of them, along with the research paper that you'll be preparing. But the University of College Dublin is a bit different. Instead of doing the oral presentation, you have to do a couple hours long poster presentation in the main commons of the Science Center there. So not only will you be doing it for the research professors that will be scoring you on your performance, but also passerbys who are also very interested in what you have been getting up to during your 8 weeks there in country. Our next program was another one of our newer ones is at the University of Aberdeen. And so this program takes place at the medical school there, which is a top medical school in the United Kingdom, and also with the Rowett Institute of Nutrition for our public health projects that we also have available. This program, because it's situated in the medical school, the majority of the projects are focused on biomedical science and with an emphasis on cancer biology and some neuroscience as well. Because it's situated in the medical school, they have a medical open house, which they call medical open days there at Aberdeen, that you can participate on that program. And because of our strong relationship with the university there, if you would like to, be part of physician and nurse shadowing there, clinical shadowing, we can arrange that for you while you're in country. It's a very difficult thing to do in the UK for many regulations that are understandable, but they will allow us to have students to have that experience if you are so interested. And then our University of Limerick program is focusing on engineering. So that program focuses on aeronautical, mechanical, biomedical, you name it, pretty much all of the disciplinary areas within engineering are covered there, where you can participate in a program for 6 weeks. But that's one thing that's really neat about it is that we have projects there for science education students. So even if you're in education or you're a science student that would like to have a more educational experience about how to communicate that science, perhaps become the next Bill Nye the Science Guy or person, you can do that at the University of Limerick. And so what's great about that is that, again, you're engaging with the projects, but there are industries, local industries, Irish industries that have offices there around the engineering workspaces that do a bit of scouting, if you will, for students. And they also assist you with your research there. And they may try to recruit you to do an internship or to come back to the university for graduate school in the future. And then lastly, our program at the University of Glasgow is one that is also multidisciplinary, where it does, the life sciences, chemistry, mathematics, physics. We've had students to do really great psychology projects there. So they have a really great facility with MRI equipment that they train you to use, and not many undergraduates have that experience, that you're using with patients to undergo many different types of areas of research while you're there. We've also had students who work with Sir Martin Hendry, who was really critical in the gravitational waves discovery there in Scotland at the University of Glasgow, who opens his laboratory and takes on students. And he's had a couple over the years from us, and both of them are now in really competitive PhD programs in pure mathematics as a result of that experience. So next slide is that I wanted to show quickly is our summer research project list. So with us, because you're in country for a very short time, there's not a lot of time for you to get there on the ground and develop a research question. So we like to have really well-defined projects available that are nice and chunked out so that you can virtually shop around and then talk with your advisors when you're back on campus and say, is this a good fit for me? So on our landing page, this shows 2020, but in the next couple weeks, in the mid and latter part of November, we'll be having the projects that are available for 2021. You can search by discipline, and that's what we really like for you to do. So you can see on this list, you can click aerospace engineering, computer software, you name it, and actually that's just part of the list. So if you go to the next slide, I think we just clicked on biomedical, cancer biology, for instance, right? And so there it shows all the cancer biology projects that we have around the world within our 8 programs, or the same for biomedical science, cell and molecular biology, and so on and so forth. And it shows you the location, but then it also shows you the status of that project. The majority of our projects are 1 student per 1 research supervisor. And also, just to give you a bit more information about that, because this is taking place during the summer, most of the undergraduate students at these institutions actually have gone home, and they're either working, for book money, tuition money, and things like that for the next year. So more than likely, you'll be the only undergraduate in the research group, surrounded with graduate students and postdocs and the research supervisor themselves. So you'll have multiple levels of support and guidance while you're in the laboratory, but chiefly you will be the only undergraduate student. Some of the projects take multiple students, but you'll still be working on very different things, but we keep this updated each and every day with the availability. So we like for you to apply and to choose multiple ones, just in case the one that you were vying for is no longer available. Now, what's great with this is if you click onto the title of the project, so the next slide, please, it will take you to a page that gives you more detailed information about just what this project is involving. And it will let you know gives you a little bit of background, but then also with some of the project descriptions, it will list the preferred background that you should have, such as courses and experience. And sometimes it's required that in order for you to be successful, you need to have this experience. And we like to be really upfront and explicit about that, because student success is at the forefront of everything that we do at Arcadia. And where you don't see it listed that, it's preferred that you have this background or it is required, that means that that project, such as the one here about the Association of the Microbiome, will meet you where you are, right? So they want you to take, at least have a couple of years of courses under your belt. But as you can see, it doesn't list any prerequisites that you must have. That means that once you get accepted onto the project, we'll put you in contact with the research supervisor. The knowledge exchange can begin, and they'll meet you where you are and craft the project around your knowledge and bring you up to speed before you arrive in country to really start getting your hands dirty. And so the next slide here, before I kind of talk over this slide, I wanted to Melissa to come in, and then I'll finish out with talking a bit about our student publications.
Sure, and I know we're getting a little bit close to the time and we want to leave some time for questions. So I just wanted to share briefly about the application process for the Arcadia STEM Summer Research. You will apply to the program of your first choice project, and then you will submit an essay where you describe your second and third choice. They do not have to be in the same location. So if your first choice is in Glasgow and your second one is in Aberdeen and your third in London, that's fine. Also, we do hope to release all the 2021 projects by mid to late November. And it is a rolling admissions process, which means that the first student who has a complete application and meets the requirements of the project will get that spot. So it does behoove you to apply early and have your application complete so you get your first choice.
Thank you, Melissa. And to wrap up really quickly, I'd like to end with this slide about our student publications. It really underscores the level of research that we offer at Arcadia. So again, we're not sending you abroad just to go and wash test tubes or to get coffee orders or things like that. But again, these are chunked out bits of active research at world-class institutions. So one of our first publications was published in the Journal of Nanomedicine, and it was one of our alumni students who was from Clemson University, Elizabeth Gaston, who published this article as the primary author on her own there. And then our most recent publications here, it was published just this year to the right there, was in the European Journal of Surgical Oncology that focused on male breast cancer, which isn't talked about a lot, but is very serious. And so these are two bright young women, Morgan Gaylor and Amanda Haggerden, who are from Michigan State University, who was in the laboratory of one of the chief molecular oncologists in the United Kingdom, Valerie Spears. And she opened her doors to these bright young women, and from their 6-week experience, they contribute so greatly to the research work that they were listed here also as authors on that research work. So again, we like to manage expectations and say not every student that participates will be publishing by virtue of participating in the program, but the opportunity is there, and we'll be happy to have you all, you students of the UNC, on our programs to hopefully in the future be listed as authors as well on a publication from a dynamic and life-changing research experience abroad.
Thank you so much, Jesse and Melissa. And now we've got Derek, who will introduce our UNC Study Abroad alumni who participated on a program with research.
All right, thank you so much, Emily. I'm going to turn it over to Mandy Pitts. She did our UNCIE Thailand summer program. Actually, excuse me, it's a spring and summer program. I'll let her tell you a little bit more about that.
Hi guys, my name's Mandy. I did the Thailand Study Abroad program, like Derek mentioned. It was in 2019, so it was last year from January to August. I kind of have a lot of slides with pictures, but we can just kind of breeze through those while I'm talking. I'll just give you a brief overview, and then feel free to reach out to me if you have any specific questions. So this was a 7-month program, which is a lot longer than a lot of study abroad programs. And I and other students on the program were able to do that because during the semester we took courses that actually counted towards our major. They were all environmental science courses and environmental health risk assessment courses and things like that. So we had a few environmental science majors, a few biology majors, chemistry majors. Basically, if you were in STEM, you could get some kind of course credit that could go towards your major, which was very helpful for being there for such a long time and still graduating on time. And staying there over the summer gave us the chance to do this really in-depth research project at the school, KMUTT, and we were in the smaller division of the Joint Graduate School of Energy and the Environment. So there were 9 of us from UNC that went there for this semester and summer. And after our classes finished, we had started on our research, but then we got to devote our whole summer to basically the work days working on this research. And we split ourselves into 3 groups of 3 and each worked on a research project. And what's kind of unique about this experience was that you're not really under the wing of someone doing research at this university. You really get to go in and decide what you're going to study. You do a literature review of what your group is interested in, and you find the gaps and you build your project yourself. But you definitely have enough guidance to, get it all done and make it polished. And all 3 of the groups from our year actually were able to get published. So in the last couple of weeks, we've wrapped up our projects and we've published all of our research, which is super exciting. So our 3 different research projects for the 3 different groups, there have been such a wide range over the years, like with this program, but my group did solar panels and their life cycle assessments. Another group did public health risk assessment with PM 2.5 in the air pollution and masks that were the most useful for protection from that. And the other group did a study about the air pollution in relation to mortality and diseases in Thailand. So that's just a really quick overview, but it's a really cool program because you can really be the point person on your research. You decide what you study, and you're really able to get some very valuable experience in the field of environmental science with your research. So I'll put my email in the chat. Feel free, anyone that has specific questions. I kind of want to leave it open for Q&A for the last few minutes, but feel free to reach out if you have more questions specifically.
And let me just add, thank you so much, Mandy, for that. This program, which typically runs in the spring and the summertime, we're actually changing it up here, and we're going to be running this program. We have plans to run it coming in mid to late May, all through kind of December. So we're typically do it, like I said, for like Mandy did on the spring and summertime, but we're going to be doing it summer and fall. So if you are interested in doing this Thailand program, please get in touch with me or Mandy, and we can give you information on that. So, I'll just kind of talk briefly. We only have a couple more minutes left. These are some other summer research programs too that we have in my region of Asia. We have the National University of Singapore Summer Research. Basically, if you want to be working in a lab for 40 hours kind of a week, you'll be working with a PI or NUS, National University of Singapore professor. You get over 10 UNC credits for studied abroad in the summertime. It's a really great opportunity to be able to study abroad in the lab and also explore kind of Southeast Asia. I will say that it's not running this coming summer due to COVID-19, but it should run in summer of 2022. Same for the Chinese University of Hong Kong, another great summer research opportunity. If you're a Covenant Scholar, if anyone's listening here that's a Covenant Scholar, we have 5 fully funded spots for this program. That includes your tuition, all of your travel, etc., to do this program. If you're interested, it's a 6-week program in the summertime. Once again, I don't think it's going to be going in summer of 2021, but summer of 2022, if you're planning ahead, definitely look into this program. Turn it over to Emily.
All right, thanks, Derek. So we're entering into the Q&A phase of our time together. And because we got a late start, Derek and I will stay on after 2 o'clock to continue answering questions. So I know many of you might have classes or other commitments to get to. So if you need to hop off, that's okay. But for those of you who can stay and ask questions, please do. And if you want, you can put your question in the chat box and we will try to get to most of those. One question that's already come up that we did want to speak to today is, what are the implications for next year's program given the pandemic? So we did just want to touch on that briefly. So, of course, all travel involves some level of risk, but we realize there are unique considerations to take into account when traveling these days during the COVID-19 pandemic. So there are measures and protocols that my office is putting into place. For example, we are doing additional risk assessment above what we would normally do, or in addition to what we would normally do when we are determining program viability for next year. So like Derek said, we've already had a couple of programs cancel for next year. And there could be additional program cancellations in the coming months. But we are reviewing all of our programs to determine which ones are safe, which ones are viable. We will do a thorough briefing with students during our pre-departure conference. Some programs will have to have modifications. So there could be dates that are shifting. Like Derek said, the Thailand program will have shifted dates for next year. There could be other changes as well. Lower enrollments to account for social distancing measures, or I know a DIS, Tina might speak to this, where the group might do some travel across Europe under normal circumstances, maybe for next year, keeping the travel more locally. So those are just some other kind of program changes that we're investigating and might make to help our programs be viable next year. But I'd also like to hear from our colleagues at Arcadia and DIS, if they could just say a word about their program planning for next year, and perhaps specifically how the research projects, research programs could be impacted. Melissa, I believe you had something to share.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned when we started our piece of the presentation, we do have students in country now in the UK and Ireland, and I'd say we are learning so much about how to support those students, and it's really informing our planning for upcoming terms. Since the programs we work with UNC are summer programs, I can tell you what we have in place for spring. I imagine it will be very similar for summer. I'd say it models quite a bit of what UNC is doing in terms of kind of a multi-tiered risk assessment that we're using and monitoring on a daily basis. We are also doing interviews, I should say discussions with each student participant that is required either individually or with small groups. We have worked through various pieces of our housing. In the UK, for example, you are allowed to kind of socialize within your household, which we're really defining as a housing unit. And we've really shifted a number of our initial support to virtual. Our orientation program, when you'd enter the country, would be virtual. And of course, all of the research sites will be kind of reconfigured to modify for social distancing and following local guidelines. We do know already that the University of Queensland will not be offering our research program in partnership with us for summer 2021. But at this point, all the other 7 sites are planning to run. And we're hopeful that, of course, the world will look a lot different next summer, but that even, if we are still in the midst of this time, that we are able to be transparent with you about what the experience will be like on the ground and let you know that we are thoroughly working through this situation and we'll be here to answer any questions and concerns that you have.
And Emily, I can go ahead and jump in a little bit just very quickly in terms of DIS. So we also have students on the ground in Copenhagen this semester, a smaller group, far smaller than we usually have, because so many universities and colleges had to make changes, of course, to their study abroad approvals. So we have a number of different steps that we're taking. But first of all, just to assure people that both in Denmark and Sweden, we are running our spring program as usual and anticipate running our summer program as well, of course. And this is always with caveats of changes, but the situation in Scandinavia is very stable. You might have actually heard that things were not looking very good in Sweden specifically earlier in the year. And while Sweden did have kind of more cases, deaths than surrounding Scandinavian countries, everything has really kind of flattened out, and the number of cases and particularly the mortality has decreased very significantly. So now we're averaging 1 to 4 deaths per day, which of course is very tragic, but nonetheless very small numbers. And when we look at the European CDC website, for instance, the ECDC, you can see kind of Europe-wide the comparisons, and Sweden and Denmark are both doing kind of very well at this point. Obviously anything can change, but we've put in a number of our own steps where we had our students who were with us, for instance, this fall, they quarantined for a few days at home to start to decrease their risks, took a test, COVID-19 test, and then on arrival, we had all students quarantined for 48 hours after also taking a test at the airport, which we provided for the students. All of them, actually none of them tested negative. And so after the 48 hours, they were released from their quarantine. And during that quarantine period, there were some remote initial orientation activities, but since then, everything has been in person. And we've, of course, managed our space, which we have in abundance to ensure physical distancing. We have students in dormitory-like settings. We have many students in homestays living with families, and all of whom are following the public health guidelines in Denmark, for instance. And of course, we anticipate the same in Sweden, where we're maintaining distance. We're reducing our dependency on public transport if possible, and taking a number of different measures as recommended by the public health authorities in both locations. And thus far, we have, as I said, students on the ground in Copenhagen who are really able to, they're having a tremendous experience. I know they're very grateful for being able to study abroad during this COVID time, but we're always monitoring it, and ultimately the health and safety, of course, of students and faculty and our other parts of our community, including homestay families. All of that is paramount, but we're able to run things safely now, and we intend to continue to do so for spring, summer, and beyond.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Tina. I don't see any other questions in the chat box, but folks, if you have questions, you can put your question in the chat box, or I think we're dwindling here as people are having to hop off for other commitments. So you can also just unmute yourself and ask your question if that's your preference. Okay, while you all think if you have questions, I'm going to put a link in the chat box to the full Study Abroad Week schedule. I know many of you joined us today via an invitation from the Office of Undergraduate Research, so you might not have seen the full Study Abroad Week schedule, but our office is hosting a wide variety of information sessions virtually throughout the week on a variety of topics or regions or program types. We have some student panels later in the week as well. So if you haven't already, check out our Study Abroad Week schedule. You will need to register to get login information to then access the Zoom links so that you can join each of the sessions. But all of that is detailed on that link. And we would love to see you at some additional Study Abroad Week sessions between now and Friday. Okay, Derek, maybe you could pop up the next slide. We will be in touch. I believe we're able to send out a recording to today's session in case you came on late and missed the beginning, or for those that had to hop off early. We'll send around a recording and also send around some links to some of the information that we covered today. But if you have other questions that come to mind, you can contact Bob, Derek, or me with any questions. But we'll hang out here for just another minute in case questions pop up. But for those that need to go, thank you so much. It was wonderful having you here today to learn more about research and study abroad opportunities. Okay, and thank you, Melissa, Jesse, and Tina. So wonderful to see you all virtually.
You're welcome.
Thank
It's nice to see you too.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for your time. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.